Hello, everyone, and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. I am the host today, Kirsten Howe. It's good to be back with you. I missed a few episodes recently. We had to reschedule an episode. In fact, this episode, we were good to go about a month ago, and then we had to reschedule it because at the last minute, I finally got some non-emergency surgery that had been very long delayed because of COVID on the calendar, and I had to go take care of that. And then we had Madison host an episode, and that went really well. So we're probably going to do that some more in the future. But anyway, I'm back and I'm fine if anybody cares. And I'm really looking forward to this episode. So next month is April, which is Parkinson's Awareness Month. So our timing here is perfect. We're going to be talking about Parkinson's disease, but more specifically, we're going to talk about tactics and resources that can enhance the quality of the everyday lives of Parkinson's patients. And my guest today, Katrina Kahl, is the executive director of the Brian Grant Foundation. I'm going to introduce her in a minute, but first I'm going to talk a little bit about the foundation and Brian. Brian Grant was an NBA player known for his tenacious rebounding and his fearless attitude on the court. Very good player. He was drafted in the first round, 8th overall in 1994 by the Sacramento Kings. And he also played for the Portland Trailblazers, the Miami Heat, the Lakers, and the Phoenix Suns during the course of his career. And during the course of his career was always very active in serving his community, particularly underprivileged youth. In 2006, he retired from professional basketball, and only 2 years later, at the age of 36, was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's, which understandably was very hard for him to believe, that this athletic body was not going to be able to fight this off and get better over time. Parkinson's is a lifelong illness. So scared and humbled, but as is his tendency, fiercely determined to make the best of it and be as healthy as he can. And that's what motivated him to launch the Brian Grant Foundation, which offers education and other resources for those like him who suffer with Parkinson's. So as I said, I'm going to introduce my guest now. Katrina Kahl is the executive director of the Brian Grant Foundation. She has more than 2 decades of experience in public health and advocacy and communications. Her prior roles, she actually worked as an associate director of the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research, which we're all pretty familiar with. And there she worked with experts in the field of Parkinson's research. Katrina has a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Portland State University and also a Master of Public Health from our very own University of California at Berkeley. Katrina, welcome and thank you for being here. I'm very, very happy to have you here finally.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm very glad to hear that your surgery was a success.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And thank you for your flexibility and your being willing to reschedule. And I apologize, again, profusely, but sometimes these things happen.
Absolutely.
Before we get started, I just want to remind the audience, if you're watching us live, feel free to put questions into the comment section and we will get to them at the end of our conversation. Okay, Katrina, so before we start talking about what the foundation does, let's get a little understanding of the basics on Parkinson's disease, because not all of our listeners have firsthand experience with that. I think a lot of people, I don't know, associate it with, what they see on TV, the symptoms being a tremor or shaking, but that's not all that there is to Parkinson's. You want to talk about, first of all, the symptoms and how that goes?
Yeah. So like you said before, Parkinson's is a lifelong condition. It's a neurological condition. So what's happening is there's a part of the brain that's degenerating that produces dopamine. And that neurotransmitter, that chemical, it's responsible for a lot of things in the body. So you're right. Tremor, most people think of Parkinson's as being a tremor, but there's actually a host of symptoms. Rigidity is one. Moving slowly is another one. Having problems with balance and gait is another. And those are what people refer to as motor symptoms. But there's also what's called non-motor symptoms. So mood problems like depression and anxiety, other problems with the gastrointestinal tract, so constipation, problems with chewing and swallowing, and sleep problems. So there's a host of problems that happen with people living with Parkinson's. Again, tremor is the first one people think of, and it's the one that you can see, but there's often a lot more going on for someone living with the disease.
Right. And I'm sorry about my cat.
No, he's great.
We can't keep
He's
great. When we were warming up in the green room, we were joking about it, but now he's here and it's a real thing. Sorry, guys. Anyway, but one of the things you just said is interesting to me, that there are mental health related symptoms. Now, I mean, we could all relate to the idea that if you had a Parkinson's diagnosis, that might cause you to be depressed, possibly, but you're saying it can be actually a symptom.
That's right.
Of Parkinson's, that's really fascinating. Well, because it's a disease in your brain.
Right. Yeah, and it's important for people to know it could be a symptom, because a lot of people might not be looking for it. And so to know that it's a symptom and to be able to ask yourself, am I feeling depressed? Am I feeling anxious? It's a good idea if you have Parkinson's and you're feeling that way, to talk to your doctor about it, because there are things that they can do to help you. But if you have to be aware of it. And that's why it's important to bring it up.
Well, and is the tremor the one that would make someone go, wow, I wonder if I have Parkinson's? Is that necessarily the first symptom that people observe or experience?
Yeah, it's usually it is a common occurrence, and it is often the reason why somebody goes to get a diagnosis is because they have a tremor. Mm-hmm. Having said that, the rigidity and the slowness are also very, very common reasons why people would go to see a neurologist. But if you look years ahead of those symptoms, you'll find that people had problems with sleep and smell and depression many years prior to the onset of the other symptoms.
Right. So they may have been experiencing Parkinson's symptoms, but didn't know that was Parkinson's. And why would you automatically assume that until you had something more closely associated with it? Yeah. Okay. I think all of that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Parkinson's can lead to dementia? Dementia can be part of Parkinson's?
Yeah. Cognitive problems can be a part of Parkinson's. That a lot of people struggle with things like multitasking or paying attention. And so there are some cognitive pieces to Parkinson's, and that are important to know, because if you can know about those things, there are things you can do about them. So it is important to recognize that Parkinson's is more than a movement disorder. It also causes problems with cognition. It can also cause problems with other mood and things to that effect. And again, if you're aware of them, then there are things that you can bring up to your provider, and there's other types of things you can do to help with those symptoms.
Right. Okay. All right. Now, what I said in the introduction was that Brian Grant was diagnosed with early or young onset Parkinson's. What exactly does that mean? And is it different from, I'm just going to say, standard Parkinson's? I don't know if that's really the right term, but.
Yeah, I mean, young onset Parkinson's usually refers to somebody getting diagnosed before the age of 50. Okay. So that's what we mean by young onset Parkinson's. And what's different for a lot of people with young onset Parkinson's is just the place in life that they are. So a lot of people, if they're diagnosed in their 20s, 30s, 40s, they might still be trying to work. They might still be parenting. They might still be dating. They might still be doing a lot of things that we don't typically think of when we think of people living with Parkinson's.
Sure.
So but they'll be experiencing a lot of the same symptoms. The problems with movement, the problems with mood, the problems with cognitive ability. And so it's really more trying to help them figure out their daily living when they're maybe not retired or at a place in their life where they're still trying to get to work and do the things that we're all trying to do in our 20s, 30s, 40s.
Right. Okay. All right. And there is not currently a cure for Parkinson's.
That's correct. There is not currently a cure for Parkinson's. The treatments that are given for Parkinson's disease are meant to help the symptoms, and they try to help replace the dopamine that's lost, but there isn't a cure.
Okay. All right. So now we've got a little bit of background on the disease, but the focus of your foundation is helping people through various means to live their best life with Parkinson's. And there are things that people can do with the Brian Grant's, education, I guess. So this is what we're doing here, is making people aware. There are things you can do to improve the quality of your life. So let's talk about some of those. What is like the one big one, the biggest one, the most important one, or the one that first comes to mind?
Oh, for sure, exercise. And there isn't a person, a provider, an expert that would disagree. Exercise is the only thing that has been shown to modify the progression of the disease, to actually help people manage their symptoms in a way that can potentially slow down the way that the symptoms progress. So exercise, if you are out there living with Parkinson's and you're wondering what to do and you don't yet have an exercise routine, that is probably the first thing you should do. Okay. And so I would just say that right off the bat. And any exercise really is good exercise. There are some things that are better at managing some symptoms than others, so that's important to know. But in general, exercise rises to the top.
That's so fascinating, because I've had numerous guests on talking about various things, and when I ask a question like that, they always have that same answer too. If we're talking about dementia, if we're whatever it is, exercise. Number one.
Exercise that's right, for everything. Exercise.
For everything. Yeah.
But particularly for for movement disorders, if you're the way that exercise helps you retrain your brain. So we know that exercise actually helps those neuron connections that are dying. It helps rebuild them. It helps with neuroplasticity. So, it's actually training the brain when you move your body. And people don't think about it that way a lot of times, but it is training your brain.
Okay. So what are some of the other things that people can do to improve their lives?
Well, it's not going to shock you that a healthy diet helps too. So exercise and a healthy diet, eating your fair share of vegetables and fruits and whole grains and beans, and making sure you have a wholesome diet is really, really helpful, not just because it's good for your overall health, but also because there are certain things that help the brain function better, lots of nutrients. And like I said, you can find them in fruits and vegetables. Also, I was talking about some of the other things like sleep problems, constipation.
Yeah.
Those could be helped by diet. So a high fiber diet is helpful. And then with sleep, it's important to remember that there are things that can affect your sleep. Caffeine, alcohol, make it hard for you to get a good night's sleep. So a healthy diet is definitely up there. And then like I talked about with the mental health. So there's a lot of things you can do to improve your mental health and you don't have to be clinically depressed or clinically anxious to want to help your mood. So that's important, that's important to know.
We all want that,
Yeah.
Just walking around in our everyday lives. We all want that.
Yes.
And it's not always about, watching a stupid sitcom.
Yes, and those sitcom is a helpful thing, but number one thing that boosts your mood will go back to exercise, right? So there's another one that actually hits a lot of different improvements in your life. If you exercise, so many studies that show that it improves your mood. The sleep really improves your mood. So setting a regular sleep routine for yourself can really improve your mood. But there's a lot of other things you can do as well. So we do mindfulness classes, really helping people take a minute to connect with their thoughts, take a breath, and it really does help reduce stress. And then, of course, making sure you have a good network of people around you who you can talk to and confide in about your situation and share your journey with. That's also very important for living with Parkinson's.
Okay. And okay, so now, those are kind of general things. That's good. All that's good advice, but you actually have resources on the Brian Grant Foundation website, which I will put the URL up on the video here. Talk about, I know you have, for example, a webinar series. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so every second Wednesday of the month, we do an expert Q&A. So we talk about a very important topic in Parkinson's with an expert. The one actually coming up in April, on April 13th, is with a world-leading expert in exercise research for Parkinson's. She was the lead researcher behind the development of the Parkinson's exercise recommendations. So she's going to talk about the recommendations. She's going to talk about how you can get them into your weekly routine. So she's a great expert, and I would say, I'll tell people, don't miss it. She's really, really, really good at this topic, which, like we talked about, is actually the most important thing you could be doing for Parkinson's. So, but that's every month. So sometimes we do financial planning or legal planning. Sometimes we do a healthy diet, nutrition recommendations. We do mental health. We have a lot of different experts come on and talk about those topics. All of them are also recorded and available on our website as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And one of the things I like about your foundation is those things are available generally to everybody, and they're free.
That's right. Everything on our website. We have exercise videos, we have cooking videos, we have mindfulness classes, we do exercise sessions. Everything on our website at briangrant.org is free. And we encourage people to give it a shot, to check it out and learn how to live better with Parkinson's.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. It's beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
And when you say free, you get my attention.
Yeah.
But that's just such a wonderful resource for people, because you really do. You have a lot of stuff on there. And I think you're getting ready to launch a podcast.
Yes, this is a very exciting one for us. So on April 1st, we're launching our first ever podcast series with Brian Grant and co-host Heather Kennedy. She is another person living with Parkinson's, a single mom. So it's a very candid conversation between two people talking about what it's like to live with young onset Parkinson's. I think it's important for everyone, but going back to what we talked about earlier about the special challenges people face when they are still parenting or working. Right. It's just really interesting to hear from these two people about that conversation, because it's not something that's often talked about. So we really hope people will tune in and join us to hear that conversation. And then we've started a Facebook group so that people can come and talk about their experiences and maybe connect with other people, because that connection, finding that person that you can connect with to talk about having Parkinson's, is really important to living well with Parkinson's.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned that as you got to have a support network, and you can't always dump all of that worry and fear or whatever on your spouse or your significant other. You've got to have I think you got to have other people, and having someone who really can understand what you're talking about, probably very, very helpful.
Yeah, and same with the care partner too. So a lot of times the care partner needs a support network, right? So you can talk about, what's going on for you too. It can take an emotional toll on everybody in the family. So it's important for everybody to be able to have their conversations, and there are people they turn to talk about it.
Right. That is a very good point. And we should not overlook the care partners, caregivers, because it's hard. It's hard all the way around,
right?
As we know. Okay, so I think that the other thing, you have on your website the ability for people to sign up so that they get notifications whenever there's something new. Like if you post a new blog, you've produced a new podcast episode, they don't have to be checking the website every day. They can actually get a notification, and then they'll know, okay, there's something new there that I haven't seen yet.
That's right. So you can sign up for emails on our website, and we will notify you every time there's a new resource. We also do have a print newsletter. So for the people out there who prefer to get things in the mail, you can sign up for that as well. But yes, we do send out a regular email with all the stuff that's happening. And a lot is coming up in April, I will say, Parkinson's Awareness Month. So it's a good time to check in with us and sign up.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to go to our questions, because we do have a few questions. Hang on one second while I scroll through. Okay. The first one I see here, do alternative approaches like acupuncture, hypnosis, those kinds of things help with Parkinson's?
Yeah, so it's not, we've heard from people who say, yes, things like acupuncture and massage and are helpful. They are helpful for symptoms. It's anecdotal. A lot of that evidence is anecdotal.
There's no peer-reviewed research on that topic, but
so it's hard to recommend it. But if you have the means and the interest, it's worth trying.
Try it.
So a lot of people do give it a shot. And like I said, the two that kind of have risen to the top from what we've heard have been things like acupuncture and massage. And of course, other things that, just are also helpful with both exercise and mind body. So yoga is a great thing. A lot of people really enjoy that, especially yoga for Parkinson's. There are people out there that do specific classes around that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's another one that I would recommend.
Yeah. It's worth checking it out. If it works for you, great.
If it works for you, great. Yeah.
Okay. Is Parkinson's painful? We didn't talk about pain, you and I, so I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, people report pain with Parkinson's. As you can imagine, there's a lot of muscle stiffness, a lot of rigidity that goes along with Parkinson's. So people do report pain. That's another place where mindfulness actually does help. Mindfulness is helpful for people report that it helps. Again, yoga, exercise, those things can also help with the muscle stiffness to help reduce pain.
Okay. Okay. So I learned something new. Yeah. So here I have a question. What is the average age of a Parkinson's diagnosis? I know we talked about young onset and the other, but what is the average age, if you know?
Yeah, most people are diagnosed over the age of 60. So it still is a disease that affects people over the age of 60 years old. Having said that, Parkinson's is also the fastest growing neurological condition in the world. The number of people living with Parkinson's is set to double by 2040. So when you think about that overall number growing, all of the groups are going to grow. So, so if it feels like we're seeing more people with young onset, we're seeing more people in these different groups that were once underrepresented, it's likely because the whole number is growing, and it's growing quite fast.
Okay. Wow. I didn't know that. Of all the diseases, all those in the world, Parkinson's is the fastest growing. Wow.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads to that causes me to have a question, which, as it happens, is also in the comment section. So one of our listeners had the question, what causes Parkinson's? It makes you wonder, why is that happening?
Yeah, well, one thing is age. So we are an aging population.
Oh, we're living longer.
Yeah, so we're living longer, right? So as we get older, some of these conditions are going to pop up more. So, so that is probably a massive factor, a big factor in it. In the terms of the causes of Parkinson's, it's like most diseases. There's some genetic component, there's some environmental component, and it's likely a mix of factors that finally leads to a Parkinson's diagnosis. We do know that there are environmental chemicals that are strongly linked to Parkinson's disease. Pesticides, herbicides, trichloroethylene, which is a solvent. There are chemical exposures that are strongly linked to Parkinson's. And we do work with advocacy organizations across the United States to try to reduce or limit those chemical exposures.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you thank you for that. And thank you. Let me just scroll up and make sure I didn't miss a question. Okay. Thank you to our audience for their questions. Thank you, Katrina, for your answers. Anything else you want to make our listeners aware of that the foundation is up to?
We also have our gala. It happens on May 20th. I know most of your listeners might not be in the Portland area. We are excited to bring it back in person. We haven't had it in person.
Gala.
Yeah. So we're very excited. Well, we're crossing our fingers.
Yeah, I know.
Hopeful. But we'll live stream the gala as well. So if people just want to come on and hear from Brian and learn more about what we do, they can go to briangrant.org and sign up to watch the live stream at the gala. So we're very excited about that coming up as well.
Wow, that's great. What's the date of the gala?
May 20th.
May 20th. Okay.
Yep.
So you still have plenty of time to buy your tickets to Portland.
Yep. Plenty of time.
If you really want to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
But you can always watch it on live stream. Okay.
That's correct.
And all of those things are on the website. Like if you can't get to the webinar every month, you can go see the recording of it.
We record everything we do online. The only thing we don't record are the mindfulness classes because there's a lot of discussion there.
Sure, that's a lot private.
Yep. Yeah. But otherwise, everything else is recorded and put on our website.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Katrina. I really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you for sharing about this really wonderful resource.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. And thank you all, my listeners, for being here with me. I hope you got something out of that. I know I did. And I very much look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com/scheduling. Don't forget to keep an eye out for our next live episode in 2 weeks. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcouncil.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.